Hello students, I am Dr. Meet from Department of English, Government National College, Sirsa. In this video, we would be discussing Our Civilization, an essay by C.E.M. George. This essay would be covered in two videos. This is the part one. This essay is prescribed in the syllabus of second semester of B.Sc. Now, let's begin with the text. The essay is divided into two parts. The first one is praise of our civilization, and second one is defects of our civilization. In the first part, the author counts what we can say the positive aspects of our civilization or strengths of our civilization. He begins the essay by stating, first and foremost, there are order and safety. Now, what does order mean? It means when things, persons, or ideas are arranged in a particular sequence, there is a system to it. For example, you are in college in a class and you have been assigned a section, a roll number, and you have been allotted a timetable according to which you are supposed to meet a particular teacher at a particular time in a particular classroom. At least you were supposed to before we started with this system of online classes. So there is a system to it. And so is with the society. There are certain institutions and there are certain rules and regulations. And accordingly, order is maintained in the society. And this order, to some extent, or in a way, contributes to, or what we can say, ensure our safety. And if today I have a quarrel with another man, I do not get beaten merely because I am physically weaker and he can knock me down. I go to law and the law will decide as fairly as it can between the two of us. So here is the scenario. Two people have disagreement over something. There is a dispute or there is a fight. How do we resolve it? One way is that we enter into a physical fight. And whoever is stronger, whoever is powerful, beats the other person or knocks the other person down. It means to hit somebody and make him fall on the ground. So the powerful one knocks the other person down, beats him, and has his way and even has his say, or takes away whatever he or she wants. And it used to be the way, at least at some time in history. But this is not the proper way of a civilized society, and C.E.M. George would say it is the primitive way, or it is the way of the savages. So today we don't resolve these issues like this, though in Hindi movies we have heroes who all the time challenge their rival to a physical fight, and they have this fight, and finally the hero beats up other person and is the winner, is the hero, and takes whatever he wants, and he is right because of that. But this is not the way society works, and it should not be the way society should work. So what happens? Today I go to law, and law means there are certain institutions and rules and regulations. For example, in college, you have a problem, you go to your teacher or the principal, and your problem will be resolved according to certain rules and regulations. And the law will decide as fairly as possible. Fairly means justly. And as justly it is possible for us, because law has its own limitation between the two. Now the question arises, what would be the basis of that decision? And the author tells us, thus in disputes between man and man, right has taken the place of might. Might means power. So today if we have a dispute between the two people, it is not resolved on the basis of might, that is power or the strength, though it used to be the way at one point of time in history, or at certain points of time in history. And therefore the saying goes, might is right, but it should not be. So what should be is that the decisions should be made, the issues should be resolved between man and man, and even amongst nations, and we'll come to that in the later part of the essay. They should be decided on the basis of who is right. And moreover, the law protects me from robbery and violence. Nobody may come and break into my house, steal my goods, or run off with my children. Of course, there are burglars, but they are very rare, and the law punishes them whenever it catches them. So, another surety or security is against violence of any kind. So, it doesn't happen regularly that somebody breaks into my house. Breaks into means enter or open up something or a place forcibly, especially for the purpose of stealing something. Now, it doesn't happen all the time that people just enter your house and take away your phone or your books and run off with your children. It happens sometimes. Once in a while there are instances, and there is a mechanism in the society to catch them, and whenever law is able to catch these people, it punishes them according to certain rules and regulations. And therefore, the first praise of our civilization is that there is order and safety. Now, many of us may question, how come somebody dare take my things away? This is mine. So author comes to that point that we take our safety for granted. So, and because we take our safety for granted, author says it is difficult for us to realize how much this safety means. Without safety, those higher activities of mankind which make up civilization could not go on. The inventor could not invent, the scientists find out, or the artists make beautiful things. Now, he says that because we are so used to safety, we don't realize how important it is and how essential it is, especially for those higher activities which make up civilization. So there are few things, according to him, which make up civilization, which and he calls these activities higher activities. They could not go on. Go on means continue. And what are these higher activities? Inventor could not invent. The scientists find out, or the artists make beautiful things. So inventing, discovering, and creating beautiful things like painting, music, literature, all these are the higher activities which, according to author, make up civilization. And they won't be possible if there was no safety. Now imagine all of you are science students and working in a lab. You are trying to do an experiment, concentrate on something, study something, and you are all the time worried that somebody may come and hit you on the head, or may run off with your bag or your phone. Would you be able to do that? No. Similarly, a painter would not be able to paint in these conditions, or a poet write poetry. So, therefore, these are the preconditions, order and safety are the preconditions for these higher activities of mankind which make up civilization. Hence, order and safety, although they are not themselves civilization, are things without which civilization would be impossible. So they themselves are not civilization. So safety and order are not themselves civilization, but they, as I said, they are the preconditions of civilization because they make all those activities possible. Those activities of inventing and discovering and creating beautiful things are made possible only by the conditions of safety and order. They are as necessary to our civilization as the air we breathe in is to us, and we have grown so used to them that we do not notice them any more than we notice the air. So here he makes a comparison of safety and order to the air we breathe. Air is very essential to us. It's a precondition for us, our life. We cannot survive without air, but we never realize we are breathing. We all the time breathing, but we never notice it. Maybe we notice it when we are not able to breathe properly. For example, there is low level of oxygen around us, and then we realize its importance. So is with safety. So he says that we have got so used to it. Getting used to means getting familiar with something, so that it seems normal to us, it's usual to us. We take it for granted that it's going to be there. So is with the air. So the comparison with air is one reason is that it is as essential to civilization as air is to living. And second, we also do not notice safety and order as we fail to notice air around us. For all that, they are both new things and rare things. Except for a short period under Roman Empire, there have been order and safety in Europe only during the last 200 years. And even during that time, there have been several revolutions, a great many wars. That it is a great achievement of our civilization that today civilized men should in their ordinary daily lives be practically free from the fear of violence. Now, he says that though we may think they are common things and they are normal things, it is not so. In fact, they are new things and rare things. Rare means not common. But what does new mean? New means new in the history of mankind. He hints at it as he says, except for a short period under the Roman Empire. Now, Roman Empire, it's about from 27 BC to 395 AD. It was an ancient empire, and Rome is one of the ancient civilizations of Europe. During that time, in Europe, such kind of a situation of safety and order have been only for 200 years. Now, you may say 200 years, wow, that is not a small period. But of course, in the history of mankind and in science, when we are talking about evolution of mankind, it's a very small period. So comparatively, they are newer things. In the whole history of mankind, it was not for a long stretch of period that there was safety and order. We were all the time threatened with violence. Many of the civilizations perished because of those civilizations. Many of us perished before we got civilized because of that violence. So there had not been order and safety all the time. He says it was only for the short period under Roman Empire, and then it's only for the last 200 years. In Europe, there had been safety and order. And even during that time, there had been great many wars and revolutions. He's perhaps talking about French Revolution that happened in 1789, that happened in France, and then Russian Revolution that started in 1917. Then world wars, two world wars that happened between 1914 to 18, and then 1939 to 1945. So the whole world again was threatened with violence. And then order was not there for that time period because nations were attacking one another and killing people around. So in that sense, if we look at that scenario, that in the longer history of mankind, order and safety are the newer things, and even for the last 200 years, it had been threatened many times because of the wars and revolutions. Looking at that and keeping that in mind, it becomes clear that it is a great achievement for our civilization that today the civilized men, but we are, at least he assumes so, we in our ordinary daily lives are practically free. Practically free means it's not a written word in some constitution or a book, but actually practically we are free from the fear of violence. And this is a great achievement of the civilization. And second, they are also largely free from the fear of pain. How? It's achievement of science. They still feel ill. But since the use of anesthetics became common, illness is no longer the terrible thing it used to be, and people are ill much less often. Now, anesthetics, I think all of you know, are the substances that induce insensitive to pain. You cannot feel the pain, and pain or a certain disease, illness becomes more bearable because of that. So he says that second or the next achievement of our civilization is that because of science or medical science, development of medical science and anesthetics, today illness is not as terrible thing as it used to be. We have this again, the word used to be. In the first usage, it meant used to getting habitual of. Here used to mean it used to happen at a particular time. So it is not as painful as it once was. And he also makes a claim that people do not fall ill as often as they used to be. They used to, and so they are much less often, much less ill, and even when they fall ill, the illness is not as terrible thing as it once was. Now, health, like safety and order, is the precondition of some few things. Though to be healthy is not to be civilized. Savages are often healthy, although not so often as is usually supposed. But unless you have good health, you cannot enjoy anything or achieve anything. Savages mean the people who are regarded as primitive and uncivilized. Now he says that to be healthy is not to be civilized, as he said that order and safety are not civilization, but being healthy is precondition of what? Precondition of enjoying life and achieving something in life. Now you may come with an answer that there are people who achieved in spite of their handicaps or illnesses. So there have, it is true, been great men who have been invalids, but their work was done in spite of their ill health, and good as it was, it would have been better had they been well. Now he also agrees to that. Invalids mean a person who is made weak or disabled by illness or injury. There have been people who have achieved great things, scientists, artists who could achieve great things in spite of their ill health or handicap. But he says they did in spite of that. They did it because they just tried to overcome those conditions, and they had to put extra energy on that. But had they been well, they would have performed far better, would have achieved far greater heights. So not only do men today, so there is, he says, what is the contribution of science today is that not only do men and women enjoy better health, they live longer than they ever did before, and they have much better chance of growing up. So the health conditions he's talking about have improved a lot, and the credit of course goes to the medical science, that men today have better health, they much often fall ill, they live longer, so the average lifespan has increased, and they have much more chance of growing up, means that survival rate of human beings have also increased to large extent. For example, there was a time you might have heard your grandparents or talk to each other that they were like 10 children and only 2 survived. Now things have changed, every child who comes into the world has better chance of growing up than it used to have a few centuries back or even few decades back. So this is how our health conditions have improved because of science. And now author comes to the third aspect, positive aspect of our civilization. Thirdly, our civilization is more secure than any of that have gone before it. This is because it is much more widely spread. So he talks about here the security of the civilization itself. Before he was talking about the safety of the people in the society. Here he says that our civilization is also much more secure now. What does that mean? That there are less chances that it may get destroyed, because there were previous civilizations which were destroyed because of many reasons. Most of the previous civilizations known to history came to an end, and he gives us a reason here: because vigorous but uncivilized people broke in upon them and destroyed them. Vigorous means strong, full of energy. So the savages, the uncivilized people attacked these civilizations. They were energetic, powerful, and they destroyed these civilizations. This happened. This was the fate of Babylon, that is an ancient city of Mesopotamia. Assyria, again, another, it's around northern Iraq, and again a kingdom of Mesopotamia. This is one of the oldest civilizations of the world. This happens over and over again in India and China. It brought about the end of Greece and fall of Rome. So you must have heard of all these civilizations. These are ancient civilizations of the world. And they faced destruction, or they came to an end because certain uncivilized people destroyed them. Now, whatever the dangers which threaten our civilization, and there are many, it seems likely to escape this one. So he says it's not that we are not threatened by any dangers today, and he will be talking about this in the next half of the chapter. But he says this is not the danger we face today. And what is this danger he's talking about? That some uncivilized people would come and destroy our civilization. He thinks it's not going to happen now. So previous civilizations, as I have said before, were specialized and limited. Limited means they were restricted to a particular area. They were like oases in surrounding desert of savagery. Sooner or later, the desert closed in and the oasis was no more. But today it is the oasis which is spreading over the desert. Closing means to move towards someone or something gradually from all directions, to surround or even to intrude or occupy that place. Oasis is a spot, a fertile spot in a desert where there can be vegetation and water while there is desert all around. So he picks up the image of desert and oasis, and he compares oasis to the civilized or civilization, small civilizations like ancient civilizations which were destroyed, and then desert to the savagery or uncivilized people. So he says in the previous scenario, it was so that the larger part of the world was like a desert, and it was the desert of savagery, and there were small parts of oases, that is, the civilizations were limited to smaller part where there is water, fertility, so there is civilization, art, culture, but they were restricted to small places. And therefore what happened, that the desert would close in one day. It would just enter that place and destroy it. So these civilizations were destroyed by the savagery around it. But today the situation has reversed. And how has it reversed? That now oasis is spreading all over the desert, means now the civilization is spreading around and savagery is getting destroyed, or at least its influence or its scale is decreasing. Modern civilization is a far-flung thing. Far-flung means it's spread over larger area. So modern civilization is a far-flung thing. It spreads over Europe, America, Australia, Asia, and the greater parts of Asia and Africa. Practically no part of the world is untouched by it. So he says that he just gives us example that how this civilization is far-flung and it's spread over all the world. Almost all the continents of the world are now civilized, and therefore this is the reason he says that he believes that there are far less chances of it getting destroyed, at least by the savages or by the uncivilized people. It can get destroyed because of other reasons. And owing to the powers of destruction with which science has armed it, it is exceedingly unlikely that such savages or uncivilized people as are left in the world could prevail against it. So he continues with his idea that how he thinks that it is very unlikely that our civilization would be destroyed by the uncivilized people. And another reason he cites is that science has armed means equipped us with, or bearing firearms or weapons, that today science has given us greater power because of the technology that has developed in the field of warfare. So it has become far more destructive, and the kind of power of destruction today we have, it is exceedingly unlikely. Exceedingly means to a great degree, it is very unlikely, that it is not likely or not probable that savages or uncivilized people as are left in the world. That means that a few people who are left, because he says that larger part of the world is now covered with the civilized world or civilized nations, but few pockets where there are uncivilized people, they do not have the powers or destructive powers matching to us. They cannot give us a competition over there. So it is very unlikely that they may come and destroy us. Thus, the world has now, for the first time, a chance of becoming a single whole, a unity. So far as buying and selling and exchange of goods are concerned, it is unity already. So it's for the first time that this world has a chance of becoming one world. And he says that as far as the buying or selling of things or exchange of goods is concerned, it is a big one marketplace. So we have been exchanging and selling things from one place to another, one country to another, one nation to another. And he says, I did not mention my meals when I described my ordinary day. If I had done so, I might have taken note of the fact that the food I eat comes from all over the world. Meals means food, and also especially food that is served as at a particular or specific time, like dinner or breakfast. So he says that if we look at our food or our meal, the things we have in our plate and for our palate, they come from all over the world. And he gives example of it. Like the things in a grocer's shop, for instance, are from the ends of the earth. They come out of strange countries and far off seas. There are oranges from Brazil, dates from Africa, rice from India, tea from China, and sugar from Demerara. From all over the world. A grocer means a person who sells food or small household items like kirana shop or you call pansari. And Demerara is a former Dutch colony. It's in South America. So today, if we go to buy a daily grocery, we buy things that come from all over the world, different parts of different regions of the world. So there are, he mentions, for example, dates from Africa or rice from China, and they are part of our daily food. And no great caliph, no eastern king, not even Solomon in all his glory could draw on such rich stores of varied produce as the housewife who does her shopping at the grocer. So a housewife today has a far more choice of goods or of food items or ingredients for her cooking as compared to the caliph who was the chief Muslim civil and religious ruler, and he was regarded as the successor of Muhammad, or Solomon, King Solomon, who is a biblical king. He was son of David, and he's also known for his wisdom. No eastern king who were known for their wealth, they did not have access to such a variety of things as we today have. And this is because the world is integrated. Things are being exchanged and sold and bought from one place to another. And I think today even it's far more progress, because even a small thing which we use, like a phone, mobile phone, or maybe your laptop or computer, it's not that it comes from a different part of the region. It may be the possibility that its components are being made in one nation, assembled in another nation, sold in another nation. And when you have to file a complaint about it, you may be calling some call center in some other country, most probably India. So in this way, he says that when we talk about market, uh, this world is already a one place. The fact that these things come to us from all over the world means that for the first time, the world is becoming a single place instead of lot of separate places shut off from one another. One might say that for centuries, the nations of mankind lived in a number of separate boxes, holding no communication with each other, except when the people in one box invaded those in the next, and some of the boxes were never opened at all. Now again he makes a comparison, and here he makes the comparison between the nations or countries and the boxes. Imagine like small cardboard boxes, for example, closed ones, and he says these countries were like those, and he says they were never opened. And invade means except when in one country invaded another, that is to enter it and in order to occupy a country. And then came a time when there was a constant coming and going between the boxes, so much so that the sides of the boxes were breaking down, and the world was becoming to look more like an enormous box. Enormous means big or huge. And then there was, I think, when means of communication and transportation developed a lot, and people started coming from one nation to another, and these walls of these cardboards started breaking down. Now we came to know of different nations. So we must, I think, if you remember that there was a time when Columbus set out to find India. Why it was so? Because and he landed up in America, and that was the place that has nobody has been seen by nobody or visited by nobody, or they didn't know that it existed. So this was a box that was not open, and it was opened by Columbus. So this is what he is talking about, that there was a time when people in one country did not know that there were other countries, and if they knew, for example, they knew about India, they did not know what kind of people lived there, how they lived there, what kind of customs there were, and everything about those people. So when means of transportation and communication developed, people started visiting these countries, and they started moving from one nation to another, and this world slowly started becoming or looking like a one big box. So this is like the previous time when these nations were like small or big boxes closed from each other. So the people in one box did not know what is inside the other box, or whether that box exists or not. And then came a time when they started moving from one box to another, and these boxes started, their walls started coming down, and they started resembling what he calls one enormous box. So the world was becoming like one big single place. What the term we use today is global village, it was becoming. And then something happened. Wars and revolutions in this century unhappily put a stop to this, and the sides of some of the most important boxes have been again been firmly closed. Russia and the countries under the same system are now shut behind what is often called the Iron Curtain. Now he is talking about the wars. Of course, we have talked about it, the world wars and revolutions. Here he is specifically referring to the Russian Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution that brought the change in the system and put the socialist regime in place, and many of the other countries who followed the same ideology. And he says that those countries have cut themselves from the rest of the world. Firmly means strongly or rigidly, that their walls have come up again because they have cut themselves from the rest of the world. And Iron Curtain is the term that is being used here. It is the political, military and ideological barrier that was erected by Soviet Union after World War for itself and many other countries which were of the same ideology and system. And this term was made popular by Winston Churchill, the former Prime Minister of Britain, when he used it in his speech at Missouri in March 1946. And this term came to become very popular and stand for the barrier that these nations have erected for themselves, that could not be penetrated. The people within those nations were not allowed to be in communication with or contact with the rest of the world. And there were a reason, because these countries, especially Russia, they thought that the outside capitalist world would corrupt their system or would threaten the system they were trying to build, and therefore they cut themselves from the rest of the nation. So because of that, he says that the walls of these boxes have again come up and have been firmly closed again. Nevertheless, all the world's boxes have at some time been opened, so that there is no danger of any unknown people breaking in upon our civilization from outside and destroying it. Now, though they may have shut themselves from the rest of the world, but we, at least one point of time in history, nations from could have interacted with each other, and people from these nations have visited other nations. So even Russian people were in contact with the outside world, and therefore we know what kind of people live there. And therefore, because these boxes have been opened at least once, and we know what kind of people live there, there is no danger that there are uncivilized people who would come suddenly from outside, unknown people who would attack us and destroy us, our civilization. So he says this threat is not there. From outside, uncivilized people, there is no threat, but danger there is. The danger comes rather from within. It's danger from among ourselves. So now the threat we face today is a threat that comes from the civilization itself, the way of life we have today. And therefore, now he says, this brings me to our defects. And that is the second part of the chapter, and we would be discussing it in the next video. And thanks, and be with us for the next video.